Welcome back. So last lesson we figured out there was a bug. We could create a user, and let's just do that again. We could create a user like this, and we couldn't log in with that user. So that was kind of a problem right here in our backend. So let's just try and add Jinx right here again and just put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you'll notice we're not getting back a proper reply right here when I execute this. You'll notice that actually if I look at my hashed password right here, and this is of course when I'm trying to log in, it's going to recreate that hashed password from the plain password, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But notice this one is not the same as the one that's actually inside the database right here. They are different. This starts with C9, where this starts with some kind of N2. So that means, of course, they won't match, so it won't figure out that I'm the right user. So when I continue right here, I'll get an unauthorized back or user password not correct. And that's, of course, because something is wrong in my data set. And the problem is, I debugged this a little bit, and the problem is actually that the salt is not being stored correctly in the database. So let's just have a look at that, because I don't know if you guys know how to check out your database yet, but let's have a look at that. If you open over here the database tab, and if there's no databases yet, what you can do is you can go and find your database inside your web API, and I need the auth database, so I'll drag that over here, and it'll actually open up that auth database. Now it might not show anything yet because you don't have the drivers for an auth database or an SQLite database. If that's the case, you can click this one, Data Source Properties, and here they'll pop up a small button you can click saying download driver, right? And when you've downloaded the driver, then you can actually start refreshing the page right here, and inside the main you can see all your tables. And in my case, the one that's important is the AuthUsers. And if I open this one, I can actually see that my salt is weird. Right here, this shouldn't be the salt. The salt should be either something a little more readable, not like this. I think my ASCII encoding is messing up the salt. Now we are going to change that now. I want to save the salt in a proper way. And I also want to get rid of this guy. I want to base encode all my salt actually. So I'll do base 64 encoding of both the salts. And then the cool thing is with base 64 encoding, I can also read the salt back as byte arrays. So that's what we're going to do this lesson. And let's just start with jumping into our current security setup right here in the service, because I need a way to kind of call generate salt in my system. So let's actually try and generate this by calling refactor and refactor this right here. And we're going to extract the method. It's going to be extract method. And here I want to give it a name. So let's just call it generate salt like this. Generate salt. There we go. Now with the generate salt available, we want it to kind of return the local salt right here. We want it to be public available, and we don't want to make it static. So this is the method signature that we're going to get. And if we scroll down, you can see what it's going to do is just return the salt when it's done. And that looks perfectly fine for me. So let's just generate this guy right here. I'll call next. And now we have a new method for that to generate the salt. Sweet. And let's just have a look at that method. It's right here, public available. I want to do one more thing. Let's just move that into the actual interface as well. So in the iSecurity service now, we're going to have that generate salt here as well. So now we have that available. Sweet. And that means that now we can actually go and generate the salt when we kind of create a new user in our seeder. So instead of generating the salt manually like this, I'm going to use the security service. And then I want to generate the salt from this guy. And there we go. And actually, we could go even further. Since we have the security service available, why not actually just generate the username automatically now when we actually create this guy? So we could actually be even smarter when we see this guy now and just say, dear security service, I would like you to kind of just generate a AuthUser for me with the username of LUL. There we go. Look at how simple that actually is now. And hopefully now that will seed the database for me in the system. Good. That was step one. Step two, let's jump into our auth repository right here, because right now we are both decoding and encoding using ASCII code. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to use the base 64 encoding instead in order to kind of save this. So I'll convert this into base 64 string. And I'll also read this string back and convert it into a byte array by saying convert from base 64 string. So now when I get the byte array, it's going to be saved as a base 64 string in the database, and it's going to be read back as a base 64 string from the database. It's going to be converted into a byte array. Let's try and do this now and see if that helps our problem. The system is running. Let's jump back to Swagger and again create a new user right here. Let's just create a new Jinx. There we go. Jinx is created, hopefully. Let's just try and jump right into the database and see what it looks like now when it's base 64 encoded. And that looks a little bit readable. At least that seems like a real base 64 string right there. So that's good. And now let's try and actually use this new user, the Jinx user, to kind of log in right here. So I'll just say Jinx 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'll execute this, and hopefully now the hashed password that's been created should match the one that's inside the database. Let's try and have a look. They both start with OS at least, so it looks the same. Yep. Let's try and just continue and see what happens. And now hopefully I get back a token again. And there we go. Now we fixed that bug, and we used a little bit of debugging, and we also used a little bit of database work to kind of figure out how our system actually works. So that was kind of a lot of areas we covered right there, but still now it seems we have a running system for our user right here. And let's actually do one more thing. I'll jump up and I'll try and log in with Jinx right here to see if he can actually access the products as the final thing. So I'll take the token that we just generated. I'll go all the way up here and authorize. I'll write bearer for bearer token. I'll put in this authorize right here. There we go. And now I should be able to kind of get the products that I want when I do the GET request. Let's try this out and execute this. And there we go, we get the products back. One final test, and then I'll end it. I'll go in here and I'll use Jinx in my front end actually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's log in. Holy moly, we just created a user that can actually log into our system. So we're done with creating AuthUser. Of course, it could be cool that we can do it from the front end, and it could also be cool that you need to authorize yourself in order to actually use this create right here. So we'll look at that in the next lesson. So see you next time.